After days of sitting led to a strained lower back, I used my break time for amoxibustion treatment, only to be reported by a group of patients' family members, "As a doctor, you skip work to indulge yourself. How irresponsible. What day off? If doctors rest, what happens to the patients? No medical ethics. And he's the head of the traditional Chinese medicine department. He's nothing but a quack. Someone like that has no right to call themselves a doctor." I was burning with rage. For 20 years, I've dedicated myself to this profession, studying medical texts day and night, healing the sick, and fighting to uphold the reputation of traditional Chinese medicine, and in the end, to be accused of being a fraud. After learning I had been slandered, patients demanded refunds. I was forced to resign, but a few months later, the families of those patients knelt and begged me, "Dr. Daniel, please come back." 1. I've been reported. 10 patients' family members have filed a joint complaint against me for negligence, demanding the hospital immediately remove me from my position as department head and revoke my medical license. When the hospital director told me about this, I was completely thunderstruck. Ever since I joined the traditional Chinese medicine department at this municipal people's hospital, I have consistently adhered to TCM treatments, painstakingly overseeing the herbal prescriptions, always prioritizing patient welfare, and considering their financial situations by applying for state funding assistance on their behalf, save lives, and heal the wounded with minimal cost, always putting people first. Just because I went for a moxibustion session on my day off, the family members actually accused me of being irresponsible. The patient's family was extremely confrontational, even threatening to file a complaint with the health bureau and demand a disciplinary hearing if the hospital didn't meet their demands. I was so angry it gave me stomach bloating and acid reflux. The director said sternly, "Dr. Daniel, you really need to take a hard look at yourself. Your department barely generates any revenue, and on top of that, you've managed to create such tense relationships with patients. Isn't that clearly your problem, my problem? I help patients get well at the lowest possible cost, and that's somehow my fault." I was about to argue back when the director cut me off impatiently. "That's enough, go back and wait for the hospital's official notice." After leaving the dean's office, I was so agitated and frustrated that even taking 10 Xiaoyao pills couldn't calm me down. The hospital added me to the complaints team's work group, hoping I would personally resolve this matter. To all family members, ever since I became a practitioner of traditional Chinese medicine, I have cherished its profound depth and wisdom, adhering to a people-centered approach and prioritizing patient health. I wouldn't go so far as to say I've given my liver and gall, but I have certainly poured my heart and soul into it. If anyone feels there was any oversight in my treatment, you are more than welcome to discuss it with me directly. Baseless misunderstandings and accusations truly dishearten healthcare workers. A few minutes later, someone began to reply, "Leo's wife, a misunderstanding. Every single one of our accusations against you is true. We came to you because we heard you could treat hypertension and tumors. You just gave us a cursory look and prescribed some medicine. What's even worse is that we traveled all this way for a follow-up, and you went off to get moxibustion treatment yourself. Do you have any idea how valuable our time is? Because of you, we had to close the shop for a whole day. Think of all the money we lost." They even went as far as posting their receipts for train tickets, hotel stays, meals, and so on. This barrage of blunt accusations left me completely speechless on the spot. The thing is, I had given them advance notice, and it was their mistake in getting the follow-up appointment date wrong. I never dreamed they would file a complaint against me for this reason. 2. I replied patiently, "Mrs. Leo, the nurse had already informed you to reschedule. Frozen shoulder and lumbar muscle strain are occupational hazards for me. The moxibustion treatment was done on my day off and did not affect my work." What Mrs. Leo said next was even more unbelievable. "Day off? You're my husband's primary physician. The patient is your priority. You treat us and take our money. You should be on call 24/7. At this point, other family members began to chime in one after another. Jill's husband, "I agree with Mrs. Leo. A doctor's duty is compassion. Being a doctor means having a service mindset. If you lack the spirit of dedication, what kind of doctor are you?" Mia's husband, "We all came here because of your reputation. Your appointments are impossible to get. We finally get to see you, and you just prescribed some medicine after a few words and send us on our way. I thought it was outrageous from the start." Howard's mother, "Yes, we all know you're a famous TCM doctor with a wealth of experience. We traveled all this way to see you, hoping for a cure, but you're always busy and impossible to get a hold of." How can you even call yourself a doctor? I couldn't help but defend myself. To all the family members, I am a doctor. My primary duty is to treat illness, not to be a personal attendant. By coming to me, you implicitly accept my treatment methods. I am fully aware of every patient's treatment progress. When I'm unwell or low on energy, it affects the quality of my consultations. If I were truly slacking off, I could easily see fewer patients and just sit in my office drinking tea. Leo's wife, oh, spare us the noble speech. It's all about the money, isn't it? Everyone knows you were just promoted to department head this year and now have authority over TCM herb procurement. More patients mean more herbs get used up. Who knows how much you're skimming off the top in kickbacks? I was so furious. I really wanted to curse someone out. I personally oversee all quality control for the herbal medicine. Sourcing directly from the farmers, quality over quantity, every time. If you really wanted to take kickbacks, you'd be doing shady deals with the herbal wholesalers. I often drive out to the countryside to inspect the growing conditions of the herbs, and I even have to cover my own gas money. Can you believe it? I carry my traditional Chinese medicine books and my computer with me everywhere I go, all the time. For over a decade, I studied medical texts one by one, but when treating patients, I found that following the prescriptions exactly yielded poor results. The problem lay with the herbs themselves, so I started sampling them personally and searching far and wide for high-quality medicinal ingredients. After prescribing the medicine, I still have to instruct the nurses on how to decoct it, and they must provide me with constant updates on the patient's condition. I then make adjustments based on the patient's status at any time. My phone is on 247, ready to handle any emergencies that arise. Even though I'm a TCM practitioner, my workload is no less intense than that in an emergency room. Do I work myself to the bone just for those measly kickbacks from the herb farmers? Am I sick? 3. The criticism from the patients' families is still ongoing. Traditional Chinese medicine practitioners don't have to generate revenue for the hospital, have fewer tasks, and don't have to work night shifts. The moment you get promoted, you start pulling stunts and skipping work. You're downright unscrupulous. Exactly. If you want to make money, don't let it interfere with treating patients. These days, who even comes to a traditional Chinese doctor for treatment? Us coming to you is a privilege for you, and this is how you treat us. You have no medical ethics. Get out of here, now. I was shaking all over with rage. If I were in it for the money, I'd have gone into private practice a long time ago. A private clinic offered me triple my salary to poach me as their showpiece, but I turned them down. Why? Isn't it all so that patients can benefit from state subsidies, get affordable care, and receive proper treatment? Nurse Lily couldn't just stand by and watch any longer. Your family members, you should understand that Dr. Daniel's energy is limited. We're all adults here. Can't we just be considerate and communicate properly? Just tell me. Hasn't everyone's condition shown significant improvement under Dr. Daniel's care? In my over 10 years of practice, every single patient I've agreed to treat, no matter how severe their condition, has been cured and discharged. That is an indisputable fact. A brief silence fell over the group chat. A family member suddenly sent a voice message. You're treating a minor issue. What's there to brag about? Any doctor could handle it. It's got nothing to do with you. Immediately, a chorus of agreement followed in the chat. All you do is tell people to control their diet. If they do, their blood pressure and blood sugar will naturally come down. What does that have to do with the doctor? After he finished the 2 courses of medicine, he was told to stick to a strict diet, and that was the end of it. What kind of quack is this? All flash and no substance. My blood pressure shot through the roof. 4. The very essence of traditional Chinese medicine treatment is to restore the patient's body to its proper balance. To put it bluntly, patients' symptoms are incredibly varied. The real challenge lies in syndrome differentiation. A single oversight in diagnosis can drastically reduce the treatment's effectiveness, or even make it counterproductive. It has taken me over a decade of summarization, analysis, and practice to achieve this level of precision and simplicity in my prescriptions. To ensure efficacy, I regularly ask patients for feedback on their condition before and after taking the medicine, so I can make timely adjustments. If a patient can't afford their medicine, I always do my utmost to help them secure financial assistance. In a Western medicine department, even a simple checkup or treating a common cold can easily cost several hundred. Here with me, a course of 3 doses of medicine costs less than $100 and gets the job done. But now, these family members are claiming the patient's improvement has nothing to do with me. This is a classic case of putting the cart before the horse. Fuming with frustration, I typed back with a cold sneer, if everyone believes the patient's recovery is entirely up to them, then why bother coming to the hospital to see me? What does my moxibustion treatment have to do with it? The family members blew up, unleashing a torrent of angry replies. What kind of attitude is that? We're paying to be here. We deserve proper medical service. We're paying you for your services, giving you a chance to make money, and you have the nerve to act so entitled. Even Nurse Lily couldn't stand it and quickly tried to comfort me. Are these patients' families out of their minds? Do they think this is a hotel? Are we their personal servants? The messages in the group chat kept flooding in. My vision was starting to blur with rage. I took a deep breath and told myself to stay calm. Once more, I earnestly composed the message. To all family members, the hospital is a place for healing. Venting emotions won't solve anything. Please focus your energy on the patient. I will do everything in my power to help them and ensure they are discharged in good health. A single sentence from Leo's wife completely broke my composure. You have no medical ethics. Do you deliberately delay treatment to make the patient worse, just so you can swoop in later and show off your skills? That statement is the greatest insult to my profession. Fine, whatever, I quit. I'm done being the attending physician here. Alright, I have essentially worked out a treatment plan for each patient. I currently have 35 patients under my care, and each one has a different treatment plan. Even though I cannot serve as the attending physician, I still hope to fulfill my final duty and show my care for the patients. During rounds the next day, as I made my way through the ward, it was already filled with a chorus of complaints. I thought Chinese medicine was supposed to work fast. I've been taking it for 3 days. Do I really need to keep going? The moment I open my eyes, I'm hit with the smell of herbal medicine. My mouth still tastes bitter. Traditional Chinese medicine is unreliable. I just checked my blood pressure, and it's gone up again. Every patient who comes to see me has a complex, hard-to-treat condition. Is this a complex condition that requires hospitalization? Isn't it normal for a patient's blood pressure to fluctuate while adjusting medication? 5. Just as I was about to speak, Leo suddenly asked me loudly, Dr. Daniel, the longer we stay in the hospital and the more medication we take, the higher your bonus gets, right? What? I was momentarily stunned. Why else would you keep us here and have the nurses administer the medicine? It must be because the kickbacks on traditional Chinese medicine are huge, and you're using us as lab rats. Thank goodness you stopped treating us quickly, otherwise who knows what kind of state you would have left us patients in. My face instantly turned ashen. I glanced around and saw looks of contempt and disdain on the faces of the other patients and their families. In other words, they all knew I had been reported by a patient's family. They were the ones who came to me for treatment in the first place. Now, halfway through the course, when they're starting to see some results, and I'm facing a malicious complaint, not a single one of them has spoken up to defend me. Some even seem to think I'm some kind of unethical, money-grubbing practitioner. In over a decade of practicing medicine, I have never felt this disheartened. I let out a helpless sigh. I turned and left the ward, hearing the hushed, mocking whispers behind me. What kind of miracle doctor is this? He's just a quack chasing fame. I've never heard of anyone being hospitalized just for taking herbal medicine. I want to go home. He's just trying to make money off our hospital bills and herbal medicine costs. Doctors can be even more ruthless than capitalists. Look at the prescription he wrote. It contains raw aconite. Raw aconite is highly toxic. And he prescribed so much of it. He doesn't realize that raw aconite is a key ingredient in the life-saving decoction for critical heart conditions, a highly effective treatment for cardiovascular and cerebrovascular diseases. If the dosage isn't sufficient, it won't have the remarkable effect. I barely slept a wink that night. The hospital promptly relieved me of my position as department head and assigned a new attending physician. The new attending physician lives in the hospital staff quarters, which allows him to be on-site and available around the clock. The family members were delighted to share the news. Leo's wife said, I know Dr. Ryan, he's a top graduate from the University of Traditional Chinese Medicine. I've spoken with him. He's very approachable, answers every question thoroughly, and has assured us he'll take excellent care of the patient. Doctors really should be more personable. Dr. Ryan has a nice way of speaking, and Mrs. Leo certainly has a wide network of connections. Oh, not at all. It's all for the good of the patients. Exactly, it's all about who you know, no matter where you go. Reading these comments, they might as well have just named me directly. I had just finished handing over my duties to Dr. Ryan, and before I could even leave the group chat myself, Mrs. Leo went ahead and kicked me out. I took a deep breath and then immediately submitted my resignation to the hospital. My supervisor's face darkened. Dr. Daniel, you're overreacting. Even if you're not at fault in this matter, is it really necessary to threaten the hospital with resignation? What doctor doesn't have to put up with some unfair treatment? To put it bluntly, even if a patient's family member were to hit you, you just have to take it. I came here to treat patients, not to be a punching bag. This hospital nurtured my career. I had just been promoted to department head and thought I could finally realize my ambitions here. Little did I know, the hospital resented me because the traditional Chinese medicine department wasn't generating enough revenue. I had long become persona non grata in the eyes of the leadership. Their attempt to keep me was merely perfunctory. I resolutely submitted my resignation letter. When I left, the patients in the ward were celebrating my departure. I wasn't the least bit surprised. 6. After resigning, I first took some time off to properly treat my cervical and lumbar issues. While scrolling through my social media feed, I saw that a few family members I'd forgotten to unfriend had posted updates. The proof is in the pudding. Dr. Ryan's treatment is clearly more effective. My husband's condition has improved today. What a quack. He's just a fame-hungry fraud lining his pockets, profiting off others' suffering. They might as well have written my name directly, but they don't realize Dr. Ryan is just following my treatment plan. Dr. Ryan is all theory and lacks practical experience. Still, he's got powerful connections and knows how to play the political game. What patients need is a good doctor who can actually cure them. Several critically ill patients have been in and out of recovery, constantly needing medication adjustments. As for how effective Dr. Ryan's treatment will be, only time will tell. After a 2-week break, Mingxin Hall, which had previously tried to poach me, invited me to join as their chief physician. Dr. Daniel, if you're willing to come, just name your terms. We guarantee not to interfere with your treatment methods. We'll handle everything else. They promised my salary would be tripled. I wouldn't need to be on call every day, and I could set my own working hours. He was willing to hire me solely because of my medical expertise. A truly skilled TCM practitioner is hard to find, especially one with such a solid foundation and rich experience as you. He explained the current issues in healthcare to me, pointing out how TCM departments are in an awkward position within Western-style hospitals, with low consultation fees and low-cost herbal medicine. Especially for someone like me who can treat cancer, curing it with just a few thousand yuan worth of herbal formulas. How does that make all those expensive Western chemotherapy drugs look? I never used to worry about profitability. The hospital could easily support a non-revenue generating department with the special funds allocated for promoting TCM. Moreover, a hospital is not a marketplace. A doctor's primary duty is to heal the sick and save lives, not to generate business revenue. Mingxin Hall guarantees that I won't have to worry about such concerns. I can simply focus on diagnosing and treating patients. They have dedicated specialists overseeing the traditional Chinese medicine side of things. Dr. Daniel, what our Mingxin Hall has been lacking is a living, breathing icon of traditional Chinese medicine to anchor the practice. With you here, I feel so much more at ease. The boss didn't open this traditional Chinese medicine clinic solely for profit. It was more out of passion, a desire to carry on the tradition, and to look after the family's health. The philosophy of TCM, we pray for a world free from suffering, even if it means our medicines gather dust on the shelves. Nowadays, healthcare has somewhat lost its way, putting the cart before the horse and turning into a business. After I joined the Mingxin Tang work group, my colleagues welcomed me. I was surprised that some patients even greeted me. Dr. Daniel from People's Hospital. You've moved practices. I tried to book an appointment with you before, but I could never get a slot. My relative was a patient of yours. You're the one who managed their high blood pressure so well. A friend recommended Mingxin Hall. I was a bit worried about the quality of TCM here, but seeing you, Dr. Daniel, has put my mind completely at ease. I replied with a smile. Thank you all for your kind words. I'll do my very best to help everyone. If you have any medical questions, please feel free to reach out to me anytime. So far, it's only been work colleagues adding me. I haven't had a single patient yet. One patient said, in traditional Chinese medicine, in-person consultation is crucial, face-to-face communication is much more efficient. Having this group chat is more than enough. Exactly, doctors are people too. We all have lives outside of work. Being a doctor is a profession, not your entire life. Good night, Dr. Daniel. Hope to see you tomorrow. The operating philosophy of Mingxin Hall is more akin to an old-fashioned clinic. Emphasizing the familiarity effect, patients who come here tend to place their trust in us readily, unlike in a hospital where they might switch between TCM and Western medicine. That's why I adapted so quickly. Things don't seem to be going smoothly over at the traditional Chinese medicine department of the People's Hospital. 7. Dr. Ryan had been in his new position for less than a month when he was suddenly hit with a complaint from a patient's family. The reason was pretty ridiculous. The doctor wasn't answering his phone. Nurse Lily's voice was trembling with anger as she recounted it to me. Just because he didn't answer the phone, the family member stormed into Dr. Ryan's office and slapped him across the face. I was stunned. They actually resorted to violence. Dr. Ryan was in a meeting at the time, and the reason the family called was ridiculous. They were sifting through the herbal dregs and found Pinellia tuber. They looked it up online and said this Chinese herb is toxic. Oh my god, they've all become TCM doctors themselves, telling the actual doctor how to prescribe, so why even come to the hospital? They might as well just go home and treat themselves. Thinking back, that's exactly the kind of thing that family would do. Back then, they demanded I keep my phone on 24/7 and be available on WeChat, often messaging me late at night. The slightest symptom and they'd be asking me what was going on. You only need to report on the patient's condition once a day. Some family members asked me if Chinese medicine could be toxic, and even tried to teach me how to treat the patient, showing me formulas they'd found from who knows where. Later, I got tired of repeating my explanations, and they suddenly changed their attitude, filing a complaint against me behind my back. Dr. Ryan was assaulted, and the assailant was none other than Leo's wife, in the middle of a perfectly normal consultation. He was slapped across the face for no reason at all. Doctor-patient tensions are already running high these days. After that whole debacle, Dr. Ryan had had enough and just walked off the job. I asked curiously, what was the hospital's stance on this? Dr. Ryan is a smooth talker, and he's got connections too. Nurse Lily grew even more furious and said, what can you do? Even if his family has some pull, it can't overcome the hospital's toxic environment. It's the same old story. They're making him reflect on his own problems, saying his communication skills are poor and he didn't handle the doctor-patient relationship properly. Otherwise, this whole mess wouldn't have happened. Dr. Ryan's medical skills are just average, but his communication skills aren't bad at all, and yet it still came to this. How terrifying, I scoffed. What kind of hospital is that? The management must be out of their minds. Maybe you have to be crazy to get into management in the first place, Nurse Lily said indignantly. Our department was already overlooked by the hospital. Now with the patients causing this uproar, the TCM doctors are all on edge. The whole place feels like it's about to fall apart. And the thing is, our fees are the lowest in the entire hospital, and our treatment outcomes are the best. Her voice grew heavy with emotion. When you left, I was really sad to see you go. I learned so much working with you. You worked so hard to become department head, and I thought you were going to accomplish great things, but dealing with these unhinged family members and this utterly toxic hospital, I don't even want to work here anymore. Everyone says being a doctor is a glamorous profession, but what do outsiders know of a doctor's exhaustion and hardships? The incident where Dr. Ryan was slapped ended with him being transferred from the People's Hospital to the second hospital. In the end, Leo's wife never apologized to him. After cycling through 2 attending physicians, no one in the traditional Chinese medicine department dared to take them on. With no doctor willing to treat them, they started making a scene again. They were finally transferred to the Western medicine department, but upon hearing there would be additional charges, they insisted they came for TCM and refused Western treatment. Otherwise, they threatened to post about it online and file a complaint with the Health Bureau. The hospital had no choice but to specially invite the retired veteran practitioner of traditional Chinese medicine to come out of retirement and lend a hand. When they saw the old doctor's serene and venerable demeanor, their hearts were put at ease. They never stopped to consider that hospitalization itself indicates a serious illness requiring constant vigilance, with attending physicians being swapped out one after another, each with varying levels of skill. If the severe condition takes a turn for the worse, effective treatment becomes exponentially more difficult. With all this upheaval, aren't they afraid the patient won't be able to withstand it? But that's none of my business anymore. 8. After moving to the private clinic, free from complaining family members and difficult patients, my energy and spirits improved 100-fold. when I raised concerns about the quality of the herbs and mentioned the issue with rural herb growers. The boss agreed to source from them without hesitation, placing his full trust in me. Working within the system means endless red tape and procedures for everything. Our small clinic thrives on flexibility and adaptability. Big hospitals are bogged down by restrictions. But that's not a problem for us. We just see it as offering people another path to healthcare. The owner never intended to make a fortune from this. He has a genuine passion for our ancestors' traditional Chinese medicine. As long as we can keep the lights on and break even, that's enough. This line of work is exhausting, doesn't pay well, and doesn't carry much social prestige. In an age dominated by Western medicine, it's hard to stick with this unless you have a true passion for it. A doctor does not solicit patients. Those who come here for treatment have immense faith in traditional Chinese medicine. There are patients who seek me out, drawn by reputation, for the treatment of tumors. She said, the hospital diagnosed me with breast cancer and recommended surgery. Can your traditional Chinese medicine treat it? I assessed her physical condition using the 4 diagnostic methods: inspection, listening and smelling, inquiry, and palpation. I can treat it. As for a full recovery, that ultimately depends on you. Her eyes lit up upon hearing this. So it can get better without surgery. Western medical treatment tends to be more aggressive. Where there's a tumor, they cut it out. I said, in traditional Chinese medicine, we don't use the concept of tumor. It's called a yong, a blockage caused by pathogenic or cold factors. It can be resolved by dispelling stasis and promoting circulation. The key is to adjust your mindset. Don't let the illness frighten you. The illness itself isn't the main fear. The real danger is letting it disturb your peace of mind. I can treat the disease, but I cannot save a life. You must adjust your own state of mind. She nodded repeatedly. I prescribed her a 3-day course of medication and advised her to pay attention to her emotional and mental well-being. 3 days later, she came to see me again, looking much better than before. I then adjusted her medication as needed, based on her condition. 2 months later, she clearly felt the chest pain was gone and her complexion had improved. A follow-up hospital examination revealed that the tumor had disappeared. She came running to me, thrilled, and said, I showed the scans from the last 2 months to a Western doctor. He said, without surgery, how could the tumor just disappear? The scans must be mixed up, but I had the tests done at 3 different hospitals. I was so furious. I chuckled dismissively and asked, how do you feel now? Great, well, there you have it. You don't need to care what anyone else says. As long as you feel healthy and well, that's all that matters. Tears streamed down her face. Dr. Daniel, thank you so much. You saved my life. 9. The patients were so grateful. They wanted to give me gifts and take me out for a meal. I politely declined right away. The patient said, we know the value of traditional Chinese medicine, but a truly good TCM practitioner is hard to find. To finally meet one who doesn't judge us by our wealth or status, we're overjoyed. You truly embody the heart of a healer. Exactly, I dread going to the big hospital. It's always a sea of people, like cattle being herded to the slaughter. I prefer TCM. It feels more humane. Dr. Daniel, please take good care of yourself. Knowing you're here, we feel reassured even when we're sick. However, the TCM department at People's Hospital has run into trouble again recently. The condition of those patients is starting to deteriorate. Nurse Lily vented to me, ever since you left, the TCM department has lost its backbone. All our TCM practitioners here have been thrown into the fray, but frankly, I don't think they can handle it. They're just stalling. Every TCM patient we admit is a complex case. They even make mistakes treating common colds and fevers, let alone these serious conditions. If this keeps up, the TCM department will probably have to shut down. And we'll all just go our separate ways. I saw this coming the moment I left. When treating serious illnesses, traditional Chinese medicine emphasizes a tailored approach, prescribing the right remedy for the specific condition. Every case is unique, and the approach is completely different from Western medicine. A few patients I've been treating are already in the mid-stage, yet they're thinking of switching doctors at the last minute, essentially gambling with their lives to file a complaint against me. I have mixed feelings. I don't even know how to describe it. Now that the patient's condition has worsened, the family can't accept it and has started causing a scene at the hospital again, demanding to change the attending physician. You're supposed to be a top-tier hospital. We heard your TCM department was good at conservative treatment. But after all these trips back and forth, there's been no improvement at all. I told you this old man was useless. How dare he practice medicine when he can barely see straight? What a quack. He's probably just collecting a paycheck for doing nothing. If you don't know how to treat people, get out of here before you get someone killed. The veteran TCM doctor, with decades of experience, had never encountered such an utterly unreasonable and difficult family member. He was so furious he nearly had a stroke. 10. I can't treat this illness. You'll have to find someone more capable. These family members don't seem to realize that after making such a scene, they're lucky if any doctor is still willing to help them. He's a master at treating digestive issues, but he's not equipped to handle severe or critical illnesses. Perfect, just perfect. After the old Chinese medicine doctor left, no one was willing to deal with these bizarre patients and their families anymore. Nurse Lily suspected they were there just to cause trouble. The hospital administrators were losing their minds too. All that commotion made the family members remember me. If all else fails, we should call Dr. Daniel back. My husband's condition improved when he was here. Leo's wife called me. Hearing I had answered, she said, I've spoken to the hospital. We've decided to have you come back. I couldn't help but chuckle lightly. And you are, never mind, whoever you are. I've already resigned. I'm working somewhere else now. The voice on the other end of the line was still dripping with condescension. You can always be rehired after resigning. How can the outside world compare to the security of the system? I know you're at some little clinic called Mingxin Tang, a real back alley operation. That remark made me frown. No offense, but I happen to like back alley operations. And even if the hospital begged me to come back, I wouldn't treat any of you again. Leo's wife said angrily, You're a doctor. How can a doctor be so narrow-minded? Even though we filed a complaint against you, I'm willing to back down. My husband isn't feeling well. Come back and prescribe some traditional Chinese medicine to help him recover. We'll give you all the credit and let you save face completely. Who wants your credit or your face? Besides, do you even have any face or credit to save? I could faintly hear the commotion over there. We're his patients. How can he just abandon us like this? It's all about the money. Those small clinics pay more. What kind of medical ethics is that? He's such a fool. He won't even take the opportunity when it's handed to him. What future is there? Stuck working in that little workshop. To this day, these patients' families still don't think they did anything wrong. They're still trying to use emotional blackmail to force me to go back. I snapped. I treat people, not animals. People have a sense of shame. But animals don't know what's good for them. 11. After saying that, I hung up the phone. Since the story of my successful tumor treatment case spread again, more and more patients with complex and difficult conditions have been coming to Mingxin Hall. I exchanged knowledge and learned together with the TCM practitioners at the clinic. I can consolidate my own knowledge and teach them how to fish, not just give them a fish. They, in turn, can enhance their medical skills and better serve their patients. Through dedicated practice, the TCM physicians at Mingxin Hall have seen their skills advance by leaps and bounds, bringing relief to the majority of their patients. The boss was overjoyed and planned a big celebration. On the way, I got a tip-off from Nurse Lily. Karma's a real thing. The patients' families are about to revolt. Led by Leo's wife, dozens of family members stormed into the hospital director's office, demanding an explanation. She even sent a video, and the scene was absolutely spectacular. Leo's wife confronted the hospital director sharply. What kind of director are you? Can't you see the patient lying there helpless? How is it that the treatment is making things worse? He was fine when he first came in, but after a few rounds of medication, his condition has deteriorated. I had him checked. And not only has the tumor not shrunk, it's grown, and his blood pressure is up too. Are you doctors or capitalists, profiting off people's lives with no conscience? Have you no shame? You must give us an explanation today. A circle of people chimed in from behind. That's right. We came here specifically because of your hospital's reputation. The director's face flushed red, seemingly struggling to keep his emotions in check. Family members, I understand you're anxious. Which is why we're arranging your transfer to the Western Medicine Department. The most skilled physician in the TCM department was always Dr. Daniel. He wasn't forced out by your complaints. Leo's wife spat out. That's a load of bull. This is the system. What power do we have to make him leave? You're the one who made him go. Exactly. You need to figure out how to cure him, or this isn't over. My wife's tumor has grown larger too, if we keep dragging this out. Her condition will only get worse. Everyone was outraged and demanded an explanation from the dean, yet when the dean spoke, they refused to listen. Someone gave a shove, and the situation instantly descended into chaos. Someone grabbed the dean by the collar, knocked his glasses flying, and exposed his bald head. Call the police, call the police, the hospital director roared furiously. 12. This doctor-patient conflict escalated into a major incident. After investigating the entire sequence of events, the police found that every doctor had fulfilled their duty. It turned out that the family's misguided complaints and interference led to the patient's condition worsening. This was especially true after learning they had driven away the hospital's most skilled traditional Chinese medicine doctor. Several family members were overcome with regret, breaking down in tears. This doctor-patient dispute became the talk of the town. A topic chewed over long after dinner. Nurse Lily sighed and said, looking at them, I'm reminded of that saying, ignorance isn't the barrier to survival, arrogance is. But they're both arrogant and ignorant, and to this day, they refuse to see the error of their ways. I'm afraid they're really going to run our traditional Chinese medicine department into the ground. I heard they're even planning to file a complaint with the health bureau. Just thinking about it gives me the chills, right now. The hospital and the patients are at a stalemate. The patients being treated in the TCM department don't want to switch to Western medicine. The Western medicine doctors don't want to get involved either, for fear of getting burned. After seeing several doctors, the patient clearly felt the initial treatment upon admission was effective. Some patients cannot tolerate Western medicine due to various allergies, leaving traditional Chinese medicine as the only conservative treatment option. The patient is left with a bitter taste, having spent money only to suffer. While the situation is pitiful, I don't think it warrants sympathy. A group of family members suddenly rushed into the entrance of Mingxin Hall. Dr. Daniel, please, you have to come back. Dr. Daniel, we were wrong before. We shouldn't have filed that complaint, and we certainly shouldn't have forced you to leave. Dr. Daniel, we apologize to you. We were in the wrong. The patient can't wait. You're a doctor. For heaven's sake, you can't just stand by and let someone die. Everyone shed their previous arrogance, looking at me with earnest, pleading eyes. It was as if they were completely different people from the ones who had cursed me out before. I frowned. I'm not a doctor from Renmin Hospital. Please don't interrupt my work. Leo's wife hastily picked up 2 large bags and said with an ingratiating smile, Dr. Daniel, a man of your stature can surely let bygones be bygones. A place like Mingxin Hall is far too small for someone of your talents. It's a waste. We know you're only working here for the money, so here's our proposal. If you agree to return to the hospital, we'll handle all the paperwork. Just cure my husband. Spare no expense. We'll even give you a bonus on top. 13. I'm truly amazed by the way these people's minds work. How dare you try to bribe me, and so openly at that. I called for security to have them removed. Leo's wife pleaded urgently, Dr. Daniel. You're a doctor, you took an oath to do no harm. We came here specifically for you. His condition is critical. If he doesn't receive treatment now and his condition worsens, it could be fatal. I remained silent. They were the ones who picked a fight in the first place and didn't say a word when they kicked me out. Now that the fire is at their doorstep, they turn around and try to pin the blame on me. I said coolly, wasn't it you who accused me of prescribing poison? Said you were afraid I'd kill your wife, and wanted me fired. Now that her condition has worsened, you come back to hold me responsible. Jill's husband said hurriedly, we're not professionals. We don't understand the principles of how medicines interact. Please don't take it to heart. My wife has breast cancer. I heard you've cured people before. I was wrong to doubt you. I apologize. All right, exactly. Back then, we didn't know the truth. We couldn't see you. But the patients could. Watching you alone in your office, studying and preparing prescriptions, he would personally taste every herbal medicine himself. Where can you find a doctor that dedicated nowadays? It's mainly because Dr. Daniel's medical skill is exceptional. A good TCM practitioner is hard to come by. It seems the family members aren't blind, I said calmly. I perform moxibustion without regard for the patient's well-being. And I abuse my purchasing authority to prescribe you medicine indiscriminately. Doesn't that make me a charlatan who exploits his position for personal gain? How could that be? You've cured several cancer patients. We compared the prices of the herbs and found there was virtually no profit margin. You're practically selling them at cost. There aren't many doctors like you left, with such medical ethics and conscience. Just the other day, someone was shamelessly inflating the prices of traditional medicines, a group of family members said with ingratiating smiles. It's as if they've forgotten how they used to give me a hard time. 14. We were blind and spoke out of turn back then, and we misunderstood you. Please, a great person like you shouldn't hold a grudge against us lesser folk. We beg your forgiveness." Hearing this, I nodded in satisfaction. The family members thought I had agreed to their proposal, their faces lighting up with joy. To their surprise, I said, "Your underhanded tactics were truly outrageous and have caused significant harm to my life and work. However, given your sincere attitude, I accept your apology. Now, please leave. I have patients to attend to." The family members were instantly shocked and anxious. "Dr. Daniel, aren't you coming back to People's Hospital with us?" "Well, I'm just a humble doctor here," I told them. "My abilities are limited. I can treat illnesses, but I can't save lives." With that, the hospital security arrived and escorted them out. The family members were furious and turned to curse at me. They turned on me in the blink of an eye. The family members thought of something else and began hurling insults and accusations at each other. "Mrs. Leo, look what you've done. If Dr. Daniel had remained our primary physician, my wife would have been discharged long ago. As long as the doctor can cure the patient, he can do whatever he wants. It's not like he's doing it during work hours. My wife can't tolerate Western medicine. Last time she was examined, they said the cancer had spread and her treatment was delayed. It's all your fault." Leo's wife stamped her foot in fury and shrieked, "Have you lost your minds? Back then, you all cursed him plenty, saying he was cold-faced and tight-lipped. And now you blame me. It's all your fault for starting it. You were the one who first said Dr. Daniel had no medical ethics, that he used poisonous herbs, claiming blood pressure would rise instead, calling him a quack. You were also the first to file a complaint, slandering him for taking kickbacks and forcing the doctor out. Your husband has money to find another doctor, but what about us? We've all been dragged into this as your pawns. If anything happens to my wife, you'll pay for this, you lunatic." The argument escalated and they came to blows. That's when the police showed up and took them all away. I'm worried those people won't let this go and will cause trouble for the Mingxin Hall. The boss is more thorough in his considerations than I am. He knows the list of problematic patients and firmly refuses to register them at Mingxin Clinic. He strongly agrees with my view that a doctor can treat an illness, but cannot save a life. Moreover, some people are nothing but ungrateful wretches in human skin. The next day, Mingxin Hall received a complaint, and the entire clinic was to be investigated. 15. This was an anonymous report, accusing Mingxin Hall of illegally selling traditional Chinese medicine, alleging that I did not follow the pharmacopoeia when preparing prescriptions and heavily used toxic substances like raw aconite and pinelia for the health of the patients. It demanded that Mingxin Hall dismiss me and initiate a criminal investigation against me. There's no need to even guess who's behind such a malicious act, the boss said with a serious expression. Don't worry, Dr. Daniel, I'm no stranger to these attempts to smear traditional Chinese medicine. Everyone at the Health Bureau knows your reputation. Our TCM association has already prepared a joint statement. We are firmly committed to protecting the integrity of TCM and standing by your side. Moved, I nodded and proactively cooperated with the Health Bureau's investigation. For every prescription, I can explain the rationale and intended therapeutic effect. The patients and their families at Mingxin Hall somehow found out about this and were absolutely furious. Their anger wasn't directed at me, but at the person who filed the complaint. Don't you worry, Dr. Daniel. We'll find the bastard who's trying to smear your name. Some people just can't stand us having access to good, affordable traditional medicine. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have been able to leave the hospital without spending tens of thousands. Exactly, because of you, the efficiency at Mingxin Clinic has improved so much. They're probably just jealous and trying to smear your name. Dr. Daniel, please don't worry. You protect your patients, and we'll protect you. We won't let a doctor's compassion grow cold. Hearing this, even as a man in my 40s, I couldn't help but feel my eyes well up. At least my passion and perseverance were right. I get along very well with my colleagues, patients, and their families at Mingxin Hall. Many of the patients are from rural areas and know I prefer naturally grown produce. Every time they visit, they bring some of their homegrown fruits and vegetables. The seasonal produce tastes especially wonderful. It's just a small token of my appreciation. If you ever need more, just give me a call and I'll bring some over. These things embody the very essence of China's millennia-old agricultural civilization. When Shenong tasted the 100 herbs, the first practitioner of traditional Chinese medicine was a farmer. Thinking of these wonderful people makes me all the more dedicated to honing my medical skills. I am committed to ensuring these people can receive care at the lowest possible cost. One day, right after I finished seeing a patient. Jill's husband knelt down in front of me. Please, I'm begging you. Save my wife. 16. Jill's husband was crying like a child, kowtowing to me. I was a fool, blinded by greed. I believed Leo and his wife's lies and took their dirty money. They set you up on purpose. Their whole goal was to destroy the traditional Chinese medicine department. Jill's husband began to explain calmly. Leo's family runs a pharmaceutical company. They mainly produce various types of medicine. I stared at him in shock. He continued. The state is placing more and more emphasis on traditional Chinese medicine these days, but TCM relies on herbal medicine, and you can't really monopolize that. Everyone knows TCM treatment is affordable. If you go to a hospital for a common cold, you won't get out for less than a few hundred, but if you find a good TCM doctor, it can be settled for just a few dozen. So how is Leo's family's pharmaceutical company supposed to sell their drugs? I stared at him in disbelief. As it happened, Leo had stomach cancer and came to me for treatment, trying every trick in the book to stir up trouble. Because I was the head of the TCM department, I controlled the purchasing rights for all herbal medicines. Their company's pharmaceutical representatives approached me several times, but I turned them down because the quality of their traditional Chinese medicine was subpar. Cutting off someone's source of income is like killing the very person who puts food on their table. The thought of actually building up the traditional Chinese medicine department and having all the patients flock there, how would that look? Then I suppose I'll have to be the one to take the fall. I never expected Leo to be so two-faced. He never even took the medicine I prescribed and had zero faith in traditional Chinese medicine. He turned right around and went for tumor removal surgery, followed by chemotherapy. He weighed 160 pounds when he was admitted, and now he's lost half of that. Last Monday's checkup showed the cancer cells had spread further. Now Leo is in a panic and has remembered TCM again, which is why he's running back and forth in this whole mess. Jill's husband pleaded desperately. We were foolish and confused for a moment. Our judgment was clouded, that's why we believed his lies. My wife really did improve after taking the medicine you prescribed. It's just that lately, her recovery has been inconsistent, with good days and bad days. Please, I'm begging you, save my wife. As he spoke, he was about to kneel down and beg me again. I pondered the situation, thinking that if I set this precedent, I might get entangled with the People's Hospital in the future, and it could become messy. Jill's husband seemed to sense my hesitation. My wife and I have discussed it. And we trust you, whatever the outcome, we accept it fully. We're willing to sign a waiver and have it notarized. We absolutely will not cause any trouble for you or the clinic. He raised his hand in a solemn vow. I really should discuss this with my boss. The boss laughed and said, I knew you'd have a change of heart. I've already prepared all the treatment paperwork. It's foolproof, so just go ahead and do it. 17. When Jill Howard and the others came to me for treatment, the first step was to film a video and sign the relevant documents. What surprised me even more was that Nurse Lily quit her job at the hospital and applied to work at Mingxin Hall. Continuing on as my assistant, she said, the traditional Chinese medicine department has been lifeless since you left, with patient complaints every day. The doctors are even struggling to see patients properly. I didn't want to transfer to another department. I'm still young, and I genuinely love TCM, of course. I had to come find a good doctor to learn from. In the future, I want to become a TCM practitioner myself. I may not talk about curing all ills and saving the world, but at the very least, I want to be a little spark that keeps the tradition alive. Another complaint, seriously, and the complainant is Leo's wife again. She's absolutely unbelievable, said Nurse Lily. She's turned the traditional Chinese medicine department upside down, blaming them for delaying her husband's treatment and causing it to spread. Thankfully, there's a witness who saw he wasn't even taking his medication. He brought this on himself, but she insists on pinning it on the hospital. Even Western medicine couldn't get his condition under control. Now her husband is hanging on by a thread, can barely eat. Looks like karma's a real thing. What goes around comes around. Nurse Lily said all this with immense satisfaction. I was overcome with a flood of emotions. I find it utterly baffling that Leo would risk his own health just to make money. I have a deep passion for traditional Chinese medicine, and I don't mean to disparage Western medicine in any way, whether it's TCM or Western medicine, as long as it cures the illness. Isn't that what truly matters? Why must we always compare strengths and weaknesses, or measure one against another? Perhaps it's because modern Western medicine has become a massive industrial chain business. The poor cannot afford medical care, doctors need to generate revenue, and doctor-patient conflicts are intensifying. We can only hope that the state will implement effective reforms and provide doctors with a better environment to practice medicine, whether it's traditional Chinese medicine or Western medicine. The right path is to let doctors focus on treating patients and returning to their core duties. Completed. Story 2. I was reborn. I was reborn the day after I won 100 million yuan in the lottery, and it was also a month before the arrival of the extremely cold apocalypse. In my previous life, I only cared about buying a Rolls-Royce Cullinan and a Maybach, purchasing Hermes and Chanel products. Then the extremely cold apocalypse came, and the prices of supplies soared. Luxury goods became a pile of garbage, and 100,000 yuan could only buy a bag of instant noodles. I didn't survive for a month and died. 1. The endless expanse of white snow in front of my eyes before I died turned into a warm and luxurious sales office in the blink of an eye. The bone-chilling cold that spread from my fingertips to my heart hadn't completely faded away. My head ached terribly, and I subconsciously reached out to support the tall figure beside me. Unexpectedly, I was pushed to the ground. Savannah, are you going to buy it or not? Following the sound, I looked up and met Harrison's handsome face filled with disgust. Harrison, the male god whom I had been chasing after for 4 years without success, after learning that I had won the lottery, he asked me to buy him a villa outright. In order to be with him, I gritted my teeth and bought it. After living with him, I led a life like a nanny. When the apocalypse came, he coaxed me to look for supplies. After learning that I hadn't found anything, he didn't even want to open the door and let me freeze to death outside. I stood up and asked the saleswoman, "Do you have any cheap villas away from the urban area?" I had experienced the terrifying low temperature of the apocalypse. In this new life, I definitely couldn't squander like I did in my previous life. I must hoard goods frantically, build a safe house, and survive in the low temperature environment. The saleswoman smiled politely. "Miss, this is a luxury villa development." After saying that, she ignored me. I didn't argue and got up to leave. "Savannah, if you're not going to buy it, don't pretend, okay? This is so embarrassing." Harrison chased after me and grabbed my arm. I pushed him away. "Do you feel embarrassed because I'm not buying you a house? Why didn't you feel embarrassed when you were living off me? You begged to buy it for me. I didn't ask for it." "Oh, well, I'm not giving it to you now. Go away." After saying that, I ignored Harrison and took a taxi home. 2. As soon as I got home, I started to plan. The location of the safe house was a problem. The urban area had too high a population density, so it wasn't suitable. Although the countryside was remote, the population wasn't that small either. The houses in the village were close together, and it wouldn't be safe to buy one. It had to be cheap, far away, and have a large area. A farm. I had an idea. A farm was not only far from the urban area but also allowed me to raise some cattle and sheep. It was simply the best choice. Without hesitation, I drove to a farm base over 100 kilometers away from the urban area. After hearing my requirements, they all shook their heads. In despair, a big brother came up to me. "Little sister, I have an idle farm, but it's a bit far away." My eyes lit up. I immediately took the big brother and drove to the place he mentioned. The road there was rugged, and it was almost surrounded by mountains on all sides. The farm covered an area of more than 1,600 square meters. The outer wall was made of cement, and the interior was divided into 2 parts. The front part consisted of 3 sheds for cattle, pigs, and sheep. There weren't many livestock, just 2 dairy cows, 3 beef cattle, 4 sheep, and 8 pigs, and the occupied area wasn't large. On the left side of the back part was a large vegetable plot and a septic tank. On the right side of the back part was a large shed for chickens and ducks, a big warehouse, and a small 2-story self-built house connected to it. Overall, I was satisfied, so I started to discuss the price with the big brother. The big brother looked at my clothes and tentatively made a gesture of 3 with his hand. I pretended to think deeply. After some bargaining, I bought this farm for 2.6 million yuan. 3. The big brother was afraid that I would go back on my word, so he went to handle the transfer of ownership with me on the same day. When we were parting, he also gave me a manual on livestock farming. Looking at the time, it was only 5 o'clock in the evening. I directly took a taxi to the nearest barbecue restaurant and had a good meal before going home. The farm was very simple, and I didn't know how to renovate it, but I had money, So I decided to leave these things to professionals. The next day, I went to the largest construction company in the city. Paid extra to make an appointment with a designer, and brought the designer to the farm with me. I want a construction method with a thermal insulation scheme comparable to that of the scientific research stations in the Arctic and Antarctic. I want to turn this farm into an impregnable fortress. Money is not an issue. The designer handed over the drawings 3 days later. I wasn't idle either. I rented a large truck, bought supplies such as charcoal fires, power banks, self-heating rice, water, seeds, and medicines, and moved them to the warehouse of the farm. The construction company offered a price of 20 million yuan to fully renovate the farming fortress, and the construction period would be at least more than 3 months at the earliest. I raised the price to 40 million yuan and asked them to shorten the construction period, work in shifts 24 hours a day, and it must be completed within a month. Perhaps because I offered enough money, they gritted their teeth and agreed. 4. On the first day of the construction, I called my parents in my hometown again. Using the excuse of missing them, I asked them to come and see me. In the evening of the next day, I picked up my parents. After much consideration, I didn't hide it and told them about my rebirth and that the extremely cold apocalypse was coming soon. When my parents saw that I wasn't joking, they immediately fell into thought. Mom and Dad, you believe me, right? I pleaded. I'm your father. I can tell at a glance if you're lying. My father sighed. Daughter, you've suffered. My eyes also welled up with tears. The feeling of being frozen to death in my previous life still haunted me, but I didn't have time to be sad. I told them about the farming fortress plan and showed my father the purchase list. My father frowned, crossed out my list, and made a new one: 500 bags of rice, 500 bags of flour, a certain amount of chocolates, wines, daily necessities, sausages, and penicillin medicines. 10,000 gene of pig feed, 30,000 gene of forage, and 5,000 gene of chicken feed. Dad, can we fit all these in? I asked doubtfully. We must have a lot of forage. Cattle and sheep have a huge food intake. We can't let them starve to death. I took a look at this drawing. Let the construction team knock down this wall at the end and expand a larger warehouse. After saying that, my father took us, mother and daughter, and went straight to the warehouse supermarket. Dad, do we need to be in such a hurry? My father didn't answer me and drove even faster. 5. We directly found the warehouse manager. I gave him a card, handed him the list of supplies we needed, and wrote down the address, asking the workers to deliver them to our place immediately after loading them up. The manager took the card, bowed and scraped, and quickly called the workers to work, watching the workers quickly move the supplies. We drove to the farm again and bought another 5,000 gene of forage on the way. On the second day of the construction, the decoration workers smashed the old and worn wooden boards on the outside of the shed, and the farm looked even shabbier than before. My father took the design drawing and quickly found the problem after a cursory glance. Here, I looked in the direction he pointed at. The septic tank. Don't level this place. Convert it into a biogas system. Biogas can be used for generating electricity. Don't decorate the rooms, except for the load-bearing walls. Knock them all down and convert them into warehouses. Ask the construction company to dig open the corner on the first floor and build an extra-large underground bomb shelter. Living on the ground is not practical in low temperatures. I understood immediately and quickly called the person in charge. I transferred another 10 million yuan to them, told them about the new requirements, and also asked them to double the number of workers and complete the project as soon as possible. 6. Since I gave enough money, I became their biggest customer, and they sent more workers. They dug wells, expanded the warehouse, built the bomb shelter, and renovated the shed. In just one day, the farm had already changed a lot. The most remarkable part was the bomb shelter. Although it was called a bomb shelter, it was actually a new underground floor covering an area of more than 600 square meters. However, all the materials were those used for bomb shelters. We weren't idle either. We transported a large amount of forage, feed, and food ingredients to the farm day and night, which also aroused the workers' curiosity. Boss, why are you taking so many thermal insulation measures? And these cattle and sheep don't need so much feed, right? My father, we plan to expand in the future, so we're stocking up in advance. The workers nodded and continued working. On this day, I received a call from the uninvited guest Harrison. Transfer 100,000 yuan to me, and I won't hold it against you for not buying me a house. Since I had the speakerphone on, my parents could also hear Harrison's words, and they were taken aback. "Are you still dreaming?" I retorted. "Don't think I don't know what you're up to. Don't you just want to be with me? As long as you give me half of your money, I'll agree to your pursuit. Why do you think you're worth it?" I hung up the phone directly. The apocalypse was approaching. The hatred from my previous life was still vivid in my mind. The red sky and the howling wind before I closed my eyes in my previous life flashed before my eyes. If it weren't for him, how could I have died so quickly? 7. Time passed to the 7th day, with the workers working around the clock. The bomb shelter was completely renovated. Many temporary rest tents for the workers were set up outside the farm. In order to earn this money, they even leveled the outdoor toilet and converted it into a restroom. The exterior of the farming fortress was also completed. Even the previous owner wouldn't be able to tell that this was the original simple shed. My father considered that the ventilation ducts of the fortress might be blocked by snow and extremely cold weather, so he lengthened and reinforced each ventilation opening with stainless steel. The warehouse was filled to the brim with forage. Roughly calculated, there were about 50,000 gene of forage. Considering the huge forage demand of the livestock, I had another plan. I bought several storage racks online and asked the workers to move all the supplies for people to the basement of the bomb shelter. Amorphous silicon nitride glass was installed on the top of the fortress, and the walls were specially painted with 6 layers of anti-freeze cement, with an astonishing thickness. In fact, if it weren't for the high cost of the bomb shelter walls, I really wanted to replace the inner lining of the fortress with the materials used for bomb shelters. On this day, my father got 3 sets of down jackets, and the material was very strange. "Dad, what kind of down jackets are these?" I asked. "These are aerogel down jackets," my father said unhurriedly. "They are cold resistant and drought resistant and can withstand the severe cold of minus 192 degrees Celsius. Maybe we can move outdoors in the extremely cold apocalypse. Who wants to walk outside?" I clicked my tongue. My father smiled but didn't say anything. Since we were carrying out large-scale construction in the mountains and forests, it didn't attract much attention. As time passed, the farm became more and more perfect. I specially installed monitors everywhere in the fortress to facilitate recording the situation of the livestock. During this period, Harrison sent me messages and called me every now and then. I was so annoyed that I blocked him. 8. More than half a month later, the farm was directly upgraded into a farming fortress. The most amazing part was still the bomb shelter. Later, I gave the construction team more money and expanded the area of the bomb shelter to 1,000 square meters. At the very front was a huge charcoal stove covering an area of more than 50 square meters, which was also the heating stove connected to the entire farming fortress. Adjacent to it was a 50 square meter living area. A partition wall was built, steel pins were driven into the outer part, cement was applied, and it was painted white. And it was transformed into 2 rooms. For the remaining 900 square meters, I bought a large number of 4-layer storage racks used in warehouse supermarkets and asked the workers to move them to the designated places according to the requirements. It looked extremely neat. It was divided into areas according to the type of items, including areas for wines and beverages, snacks, instant noodles and fast food, hot pot bases, staple foods, daily necessities, etc., in the remaining spaces. Items such as electric hot pots, barbecue grills, and meat roasting stoves were placed, as well as 20 large freezers. The freezers were filled with fresh meat, and there was a wide variety of seafood. If it wasn't absolutely necessary, we wouldn't slaughter the livestock. After all, they were all infinitely renewable resources. There was only 1 week left before the apocalypse. There were still some usable places on the ground, so we decided to go out one last time to buy supplies. On the way home, we passed a dog meat restaurant. My father and I didn't want to stay long, but my mother insisted on dragging us there. A huge Alaskan Malamute was tied up at the entrance of the store. It was dirty all over and whimpered as it lay on the ground. It was obvious what was in store for it. We couldn't bear it, so we gave the boss 2,000 yuan and took it away. The Alaskan Malamute was very intelligent. Perhaps it knew that we had saved it, so it kept wagging its tail and circling around us. It didn't sit on the car seat either but quietly lay in the aisle. I named it Jojo because I couldn't think of any other name. With a new member in the family, we turned the car around and drove to the pet hospital to give it a full body examination. Other than ear mites, Jojo had no other diseases, but it was pregnant. We also asked the pet hospital to give it a bath. During the process, we visited 3 pet stores, with a wave of our hands. We bought all the dog food and dog supplies before we were satisfied. It was already 9 o'clock in the evening when we returned to the fortress. After today, our range of activities would be within the fortress. 9. After living in seclusion for 5 days, the abnormal weather in the early stage of the apocalypse gradually became apparent. First, it snowed in April, which caused a lot of heated discussions among netizens. Some people also posted remarks about extreme apocalyptic weather warnings on the internet, but they were quickly deleted by the official authorities on the grounds of causing panic. Some people started hoarding goods and buying warm down jackets. The prices of winter supplies soared instantly. Then, there was an inexplicable rise in temperature. The average temperature across the country soared to almost 45 degrees Celsius, in some parts of the south. It even exceeded the thresholds of 55 degrees Celsius and 60 degrees Celsius. The heat waves could be felt on the roads. Those who had hoarded winter supplies before were stunned. The prices of winter supplies, down jackets, quilts, hand warmers, etc., plummeted instantly, while the prices of air conditioners, cold drinks, ice creams, etc., soared, due to the sharp rise in temperature across the country. Various regions entered a state of emergency vehicle number restriction respectively. In some regions, there wasn't a single car on the road. The people across the country suffered a great deal in this heat wave. However, our family of 3 was hiding in the bomb shelter that was warm in winter and cool in summer, eating rice and barbecued meat, and happily playing with our phones and watching movies. The intense heat lasted for 3 days, and people kept fainting by the roadside and being taken to the hospital. The hospitals in the city were overcrowded, and patients with heatstroke and heatstroke illness occupied every ward. The air conditioner in the farming fortress had been running continuously for 3 days. The temperature was extremely high, and the temperature inside the fortress, which was originally designed for thermal insulation, was even more outrageous. Although the highest temperature in northeast China was only 46 degrees Celsius, the animals were already struggling to bear even this temperature. Fortunately, my father had the foresight. After hearing me say that there would be continuous high temperatures, he decisively installed an air conditioner. Otherwise, these livestock would definitely be cooked to death by the heat. The state promptly issued an emergency high-temperature warning, appealing to the people not to go out if they could and to stay at home until the heatwave passed. Netizens were going crazy with discussions. Some said it was the El Niño phenomenon landing on the mainland, and some said it was the high-temperature apocalypse, and everyone would die in this catastrophe. For a while, people were filled with fear. The governments of various cities also quickly arranged for volunteers to deliver supplies to each community. The power workers worked overtime urgently and were on duty 24 hours a day to prevent the city from losing power. The whole country was united in the face of this situation. After a week, the temperature finally cooled down, and the government also ordered the resumption of vehicle traffic. During this week-long high-temperature period, the death toll across the country reached as high as 1.26 million, among which the number of deaths of frontline workers was as high as 670,000. Just as people were heaving a sigh of relief, a huge rainstorm suddenly arrived. 11. Here it comes, it's finally here, watching the big raindrops mixed with hailstones crackling down from the sky. My heart sank. It was after this rain that the extremely cold apocalypse of low temperature would arrive completely. Surfing the internet during this week made me feel a lot. I saw countless workers, policemen, and SWAT officers die in the high-temperature weather. The country is sparing no effort to protect every citizen, but in the face of natural disasters, how small human beings are. It's only been a week, and the death toll is in the millions. After much consideration, I still wrote a long sharing post about the extremely cold apocalypse of low temperature on the internet. It's too late for them to build safe houses now. All we can do is to let everyone hoard down jackets, quilts, food, water, hand warmers, and power banks as much as possible. The post was quickly pushed to the top, and many people left messages saying that they had already started hoarding goods according to the bloggers sharing. It's better to believe it than not. Seeing that most netizens were still rational, I was somewhat relieved. I hope that my meager help can enable more people to survive as much as possible. 12. On this day, I received another local call. Without thinking much, I answered it. Hello, Savannah. Did you already know about these extreme weather conditions? Hearing Harrison's impotent rage on the other end of the phone, I picked my ear and held the phone a little farther away. What are you talking about? I don't know anything. I played dumb. Don't play dumb. When you asked the sales office if there were any remote villas that day, I already felt something was wrong. Why would you lower your standards when you're so rich? Now that I think about it, it all makes sense. So what if I did? I sneered. As long as you let me move in, I can let bygones be bygones. As long as you're obedient, I'll still be with you. How about it, Harrison? It's just high temperature and heavy rain. My family just has more stored food. Why do you want to move in so much? I asked in doubt. Cut the crap. A rich and handsome friend of mine has already posted a status. They have already received the news in advance and are preparing to go to Africa to avoid the cold. Don't try to deceive me. Although I don't know where you live, I have your information. With natural disasters constantly happening, people have no mercy. You don't want me to expose it and make everyone notice, do you? I fell silent and exchanged a look with my parents. My father nodded. I immediately understood what my father meant and pretended to be scared. Harrison, don't tell anyone. I originally wanted to live in this house with you and give you a surprise. Who asked you to be so cold to me before? You can come over tomorrow. Humph, that's more like it. In the apocalypse, we two can snuggle up to each other, and I'll treat you well too. 13. After hanging up the phone, my face immediately turned ugly. Father, what kind of people have you associated with? I didn't dare to say a word. What are you scolding the child for? Our child is just stubborn, don't scare her. My mother grabbed my father's ear. What should we do now? Do we really have to let him come? I asked. If we don't let him come, it will be very troublesome if he exposes it. We're not afraid of people coming, but what about the government? What if the government forcibly requisitions it? I took Harrison out of the blacklist and sent him the location. That night, we didn't sleep very soundly. I really hoped that the rain would get even heavier. The fortress was located surrounded by mountains on all sides, and in order to graze cattle and sheep better, the fortress was built on the top of the largest and highest mountain. My father had observed the entrance to the mountain, and it was easy to accumulate water, as long as the heavy rain continued for another 2 or 3 days. Even if Harrison had extraordinary abilities, he wouldn't be able to drive to the farm. It was even more unrealistic to walk to the farm, not to mention the possible sudden small mudslides. The rugged mountain road was not something Harrison could endure. After some self-comfort, I fell into a deep sleep. 14. The next day, the heavy rain seemed to have heard my prayer, and instead of subsiding, it intensified. The sky seemed to have a hole in it, the wind howled, and the rain poured down like the wrath of nature. The rain was so heavy that the hearts of our family, which had been hanging in the air, gradually settled down. The mountain pass should have been flooded. Neither Harrison nor anyone else could reach the farm, and now we were cut off from the city. Speak of the devil, Harrison suddenly sent a message, making my heart, which had just been put at ease, rise again. I'm already halfway up the mountain. I estimate that I'll be there in half an hour. Savannah, don't forget to open the door for me. I handed the phone to my parents. The three of us exchanged a look, and suddenly another idea came to our minds. Since Harrison has already come, I can only make sure he never leaves. In the apocalypse, we should eliminate those who are overly benevolent first. Whoever tries to stop our family from surviving will be the first to go. Harrison, since you're so eager to court death, for all that you did in my previous life, you will have to pay 100-fold in front of my eyes. 15. Harrison's estimated time was very accurate. I stood in the rain, holding an umbrella awkwardly. The rain had already soaked half of my clothes. Harrison was even more in a sorry state. He actually walked up here on foot, facing my shocked gaze. Harrison gave me a fierce glare. What are you looking at? Hurry up and take me in. My parents had hidden in the bomb shelter in advance, and the specially designed hidden design of the bomb shelter came in handy. If you didn't know the location in advance, no one would find that there was another world underground. I took him into the fortress. Looking at Harrison's disgusted expression, I tried my best to hold back the corners of my mouth from rising. We'll live here together from now on. You want me to live here? Harrison looked at the ground with only a quilt and the livestock around that occasionally made sounds, and his face was full of disgust. It's warm here. I can live in the warehouse outside the fortress. After saying that, I was about to leave. Wait, Harrison grabbed my arm. Where will you live? I timidly pointed to the small bungalow that the workers had temporarily repaired and built outside before. Harrison's eyes rolled, and he changed his expression. Savannah, you can live here. I can just make do in the bungalow. I was delighted. That's exactly what I was waiting for you to say. On the surface, I remained calm. Well, okay, but don't eat the food in there. That's all the food we have. 16. Then I took him to the bungalow. The decoration of the small bungalow was simple, but it could keep out the wind and rain, since it was plastered with the extra thermal insulation cement. It was quite warm on a rainy day. Harrison nodded in satisfaction when he saw the clean and hygienic small bungalow. He showed a greedy expression towards the supplies that my parents and I had just moved in half an hour ago. I helped Harrison take off his coat, and he showed a look of disgust. "Stay away from me, you stink of cow dung." "Harrison, I'll wash your coat for you." I still maintained a scared expression. Harrison, considering that I was just a woman and couldn't play any tricks, nodded reassuringly. "Wait." I turned around stiffly and showed a smile. "What's the matter, Harrison? Give me my phone." My heart sank. After handing the phone to Harrison, I held the coat and shuffled out of the bungalow. When I returned to the farming fortress, my parents were already waiting at the door. I didn't get it. I shook my head, but it didn't matter. We moved some supplies for him just to prevent him from causing trouble in the early stage of the extremely cold apocalypse. Now that he's here, he definitely won't expose the address. Next, I locked the door of the shed from the outside. The safety door was comparable to a bulletproof level. Even a tank would have trouble blowing it open. Without opening it from the inside, Harrison would never have a chance to get in for the rest of his life. After doing all this, we hid back in the bomb shelter. The rain kept pouring, but we felt at ease. For what Harrison did in my previous life, I will definitely make him pay 100-fold in this life. Not being able to ensure the safety of my parents before I died in my previous life was also my biggest regret. In this life, I must live with my parents in the extremely cold apocalypse. 17. Before going to bed, I scrolled through my phone, and the news about the heavy rain was overwhelming. The water accumulation in the basin cities in the central part of the country was particularly serious, and cars were already floating on the roads. I don't know if it's because of the higher altitude and less precipitation in the plateau area. Many people in the basin cities are moving their families to seek refuge. The country urgently recruited a group of temporary workers to build shelters. With low visibility in the rain, the construction difficulty was huge, and the progress was slow. The heavy rain washed away the crops, and this year's harvest was worrying. The livelihood of farmers also became a problem. And everyone was praying for the heavy rain to end soon. And I know that this heavy rain will last for another half a month, and what awaits us half a month later is the real arrival of the White Desert. Early the next morning, the heavy rain intensified. I ran to Harrison's door with the coat that I hadn't washed at all and knocked on the door hard. Harrison opened the door and said impatiently, "What do you want?" "I'm here to return your coat and get a box of self-heating rice, by the way." "I haven't eaten yet." I symbolically touched my round belly and handed the wet coat to Harrison. "Take it away. Take it away. I don't want a coat that smells of cow dung." Harrison looked disgusted and was about to close the door. "Harrison, my food." I anxiously held the doorknob. "Get out of the way." Harrison pushed me down. "Don't knock on my door if you have nothing to do in the future. If you're hungry, you can eat the forage with the cows and sheep. Aren't there chickens? You can eat the eggs when they lay them." Before I could reply, Harrison slammed the door shut. I returned to the fortress in a sorry state. My father quickly handed me a hand warmer. "Daughter, can't we just ignore him?" "Me, after all, he's an adult man, and if I don't ask him for food, he'll be suspicious. When he finishes eating those stored grains, the extremely cold apocalypse will have arrived, and we won't be afraid of his threats anymore." 18. 2 weeks passed. In order not to arouse suspicion, I would go and take a look in front of Harrison's door every day. At first, he would reply with a few words, but later he didn't even bother to make a sound. When I woke up, I looked out the window. The sky was particularly red today, and the heavy rain seemed to be gradually subsiding. The internet was still normal at present. The country had urgently launched a level 1 emergency evacuation. The buildings in many cities were flooded up to the 3rd or 4th floor. The rescue teams carried out emergency rescues. The news of them shuttling between the cities in simple rubber boats was everywhere. The rain stopped, and people desperately found that the sun didn't shine on the earth. 3 days after the heavy rain, a fine snow began to fall in the sky. Then the snow got heavier and heavier, and finally it was a blizzard. The extremely cold apocalypse had arrived. At night, the wind howled, and the branches swayed wildly, like a bunch of skinny old hands reaching towards the crimson sky, conveying despair and pain. I pushed open the second gate outside the shed. The cold wind was biting outside. As soon as I stuck my head out, the cold made me shed tears. I shivered and quickly closed the door of the fortress. In my previous life, because I had been staying at home and turning on the air conditioner's warm air, I had no idea that it was already so cold on the first day of the apocalypse. Early the next morning, the snow had piled up thickly. My parents and I first fed the livestock and then went to the cow shed. While looking at the feeding manual, I learned the technique of milking cows. After a while, I actually managed to milk out half a bucket. I put the milk on the cooking pot, plugged it in, and started heating it. The manual said that the milk just milked couldn't be drunk directly and must be boiled first. Although it was the extremely cold apocalypse, if we had the conditions, we still had to pay attention to our physical health. 19. At present, the temperature in the shed was still warm. Looking at the thermometer, without burning coal or firewood, the temperature could still be maintained at 28 degrees Celsius. I poured a cup of hot milk for each of my parents to warm their bodies. The warm fragrance of the milk and the curling steam rising in the fortress formed a sharp contrast with the raging snowstorm outside. A few more days passed, and the heavy snow showed no sign of stopping. At this time, in my previous life, I had already been frozen to death outside. Fortunately, everything could be redone. In this life, sitting around the stove drinking tea, with my parents by my side, the happiness of the whole family is more important than anything else. Savannah, open the door. I know you're still alive. The sound of pounding on the door came. Through my double-layered iron door, the faint sound reached the farm. Through the surveillance camera in front of the door, I saw Harrison's sorry figure. At the moment, he was folding his arms, because he didn't have a coat. The cold made him bend over involuntarily. I shouted towards the door, "The smell in here is too strong. It's not suitable for you, Savannah. Cut the crap, let me in quickly. I know you have supplies there. I've already seen the smoke coming out of the chimney." I laughed out loud. "You didn't give me any supplies before. Why do you think I'll let you in now? Do you believe that I'll smash this door?" I simply waved my hand, closed the second door, and ignored Harrison's roaring and pounding on the door. It was really cold. Our farm had good sound insulation. His desperate pounding on the door didn't really disturb us. So let him be. The more he pounds, the better. Let him exhaust all his strength. Harrison left after pounding on the door for a while. It was freezing cold outside. How could a person wearing only a sweatshirt endure it for a long time? I shook my head. The fresh streaky pork and mutton on the grill were already sizzling and oozing oil, and the aroma of the meat filled the whole room. "Let's have some grilled meat, Mom and Dad." I picked up a piece and took a bite as a gesture of respect. "You naughty girl. You start eating without waiting for us." My mother slapped me on the head. Our family of 3 sat around the grill. With the charcoal fire and the delicious meat, we felt very content. For days passed like this. Harrison came to pound on the door once or twice a day and soon went back. Indeed, the outdoor temperature had reached more than 40 degrees below zero. In just 1 week, the temperature dropped by more than 40 degrees. Even an immortal would catch a cold before leaving in such conditions. "Savannah, Savannah, please let me in. Don't you want to be with me? I've actually liked you for a long time. I'm so cold. You wouldn't have the heart to watch me freeze to death outside, would you?" I was wearing a thick cotton coat. I opened the door. Before Harrison could be happy, a basin of cold water with the smell of fresh cow dung was poured down his face. "Savannah, you son of a bitch." Harrison shut up in fright when he saw my parents, who were fully armed and holding 2 sickles, standing beside me. "Young man, I've put up with you for a long time." My father had a fierce appearance by nature, and now with a gloomy face, he looked even more terrifying. Harrison was in a sorry state. The water on his body quickly formed ice crystals when it met the cold air and snow in the air. When he saw my parents, his momentum weakened. "Uncle and Aunt, I'm Savannah's boyfriend. We had some conflicts. You can't be as willful as her and shut me out." My mother looked at him as if he were an idiot. "We've been here these days. When you refused to give my daughter supplies and shut her out, we saw everything clearly from inside the fortress." After saying that, my mother closed the door, blocking Harrison outside, perhaps because my parents were there. Harrison didn't dare to pound on the door again and slunk back to the small bungalow next door. 21. Life was fulfilling. Every morning, our family would feed the livestock, milk the cows, and collect eggs and duck eggs. Another week passed in a flash. The temperature also dropped rapidly to 36 degrees below zero. During this week, Harrison never came again. I even suspected that he might be dead. On this day, I put on the so-called space thermal insulation material down jacket that my father brought back. My father even took out a cold-proof helmet and asked me to put it on. I quickly declined. It was only a little over 30 degrees below zero. It wasn't cold enough to freeze people to death yet. However, the down jacket was truly amazing when worn. My body heated up very quickly, and I didn't feel the slightest bit of cold when I pushed open the door. This was much better to wear than any down jacket made from eiderdown on the market. I couldn't resist my father's request and still put on the helmet. Although I looked really silly, my face didn't feel cold anymore, after being fully armed. My father and I walked a few steps to Harrison's door. The door was half ajar. Strangely, although it was snowing heavily and the wind was howling outside, there was very little snow blown into the room. I pushed the door open and found Harrison lying lifeless on the bed with his eyes tightly closed. The culprit who froze me to death in my previous life had been frozen to death in the same way in this life. My heart was filled with mixed emotions. I took Harrison's phone from his frozen hand and exited the room with my father. Back in the fortress, I quickly got back into the bomb shelter. After playing with Jojo for a while, I added a large handful of dog food for it. Jojo's belly was getting bigger and bigger. It was estimated that the due date was these 2 days. Coincidentally, a ewe had given birth to a lamb, and there was plenty of milk. I planned to milk some for Jojo as a reserve and use it as its confinement meal. The nutritional value of fresh goat milk was much higher than that of those goat milk powders for dogs. I charged Harrison's phone and wanted to turn it on to see if he had leaked the information of the fortress before he died. After turning on the phone, I checked his WeChat moments, friend groups, and chat records. He had indeed shared his recent situation, but he didn't expose the address of the fortress. I felt relieved. 22. The cold wind was biting outside, and the snow was falling. Besides feeding the livestock, we would also clear the snow, and the area in front of the door was relatively smooth. Time passed quickly, and a month had passed. The temperature had already dropped below 40 degrees below zero. In just 1 month, the temperature was approaching that of the area north of Mo. The internet could still be used. Due to the extremely low temperature, many places had given up clearing the snow. There were countless places where the snow had piled up to the height of a person, and even the southern regions were not spared. In various regions of our country, there were cases of people being frostbitten, fainting from the cold, or freezing to death while working outdoors to different degrees. Fortunately, at this temperature, the power supply was normal, and people could survive. The government urgently recruited volunteers to distribute supplies to each community one by one. For a whole month, several batches of volunteers had been sent to the hospital due to the cold. The temperature was still dropping, but the blizzard stopped without any warning a week later. Just when people were about to breathe a sigh of relief, they were horrified to find that the temperature was dropping even faster. At first, the temperature dropped by 40 degrees in a month. After the snow stopped, the outdoor temperature actually dropped by 10 degrees in just 1 day. Now the lowest outdoor temperature was already 51 degrees below zero. After consecutive days of temperature drops, there were many fewer batches of volunteers. The government, which had persisted for so long, finally couldn't hold on anymore. Many people started rioting, pounding on doors, and robbing supplies from house to house. Some people even went so far as to commit home invasions, kill the homeowners, and put their bodies in the refrigerator as reserve supplies. The country began to fall into chaos. The extremely cold apocalypse had arrived, and human nature had completely collapsed. Even though the government urgently issued a notice that S-class safe houses were being built, it still couldn't quell the people's panic. The first month of the apocalypse was completely chaotic. 23. Our family huddled in the bomb shelter, looking at the news on our phones and feeling fortunate that we were able to live safely in this corner away from the hustle and bustle of the city. For new lives were born in our family. Jojo gave birth. It successfully gave birth to 4 little Alaskan Malamutes. It gently pushed the newborn puppies towards us. Its eyes were bright, as if it was telling us, "Look, aren't my babies cute?" I quickly boiled some fresh goat milk for Jojo and fed it some nutritional paste. The 4 little puppies instinctively looked for milk to drink, and they were extremely cute. For more big mouths to feed, my father put his hand on his forehead. Alaskan Malamutes have an astonishing appetite, but the food we hoarded for it was enough for it to eat for a lifetime. Even with 4 more mouths, we weren't worried. The temperature outside was dropping sharply. It was estimated that in a few more days, people wouldn't be able to walk outside. The temperature in the farming fortress was also a bit low. and we added an extra task of burning charcoal to our daily work. Fortunately, the charcoal stove was underground, which was very convenient. During this period, a beef cow gave birth to a calf. We made the most of it and had a wonderful time enjoying grilled meat and hot pot. We also gave Jojo an extra meal, by the way. The beef bones could also be saved as a teething stick for Jojo. The taste of fresh beef was completely different from that of frozen meat. It was more delicious. 2 days later, the dense crowd of people on the monitor caught our attention. "Dad, look." I pointed at the main control screen and looked in surprise at the large group of people crowded in front of the fortress gate. "What's going on?" my father asked in confusion. Our family quickly went to the first floor of the fortress, 24. Through the glass, we could see that there were probably 100 or so people standing outside. At the front was the family of the forage owner who sold me the farm. The woman was holding a baby in her arms, and the baby couldn't stop crying. "Is there anyone there? Please save us. We finally made it here. More than half of the villagers in our village have died. If you don't save us, we won't be able to survive. I know there are people inside." "Kind girl, kind-hearted person. For the sake of the fact that I sold you the farm so that you could build this fortress, please let us in." My mother and I felt pity in our hearts and looked at my father. My father said in a deep voice, "In the apocalypse, you can never really know what's in people's hearts. We don't know if they are wolves in sheep's clothing. For the sake of safety, we'd better not take them in." Just as my mother and I were about to nod, the baby's crying suddenly got louder. The couple of the pasture owner and the villagers outside all knelt down in unison and cried out for help. I really couldn't bear it and tentatively asked, "Dad, how about we take in the baby? We definitely can't take care of 100 or so people, and it's not easy to manage them, but one more mouth to feed won't be a burden for us." My mother also nodded. My father looked at me with a look of disappointment. Women's kindness. 25. After some bargaining, my father finally compromised. I carefully opened a small window of the anti-theft door on the first floor and said to the outside, "We don't have that much supplies. I'm sorry, everyone, I can't take you in, but I can take in this baby. The child is innocent, and we're willing to raise him." The couple of the pasture owner were delighted. They exchanged a look and quickly nodded. "That's reasonable, that's reasonable. We're already so old. It doesn't matter if we live a few years less. The main thing is the child." Then you ask the villagers to stand farther away. Only your family stands in the front, and then I'll open the door and take the baby in. The pasture owner ran a few steps away and talked to the leading villager. They glanced at the fortress with obscure eyes and walked away a long distance in silence. I felt relieved. As soon as I opened a small crack and reached out to take the baby, the pasture owner's originally kind face suddenly turned fierce. He firmly grabbed my arm and pulled me out. Before I could scream, a knife was pressed against my neck. "What are you doing?" my parents exclaimed. "What are we doing? Open the door and let us in, or your daughter will freeze to death with us," the pasture owner said viciously. At this moment, I regretted it deeply. I should have listened to my father. In the apocalypse, there was no such thing as human nature. I had already died once, and now I made this mistake because of a baby. The villagers also surrounded us. My parents had no choice but to open the door and let the 100 or so people in. 26. Only when the last person successfully entered the fortress did the pasture owner bring me in. He said fiercely, "Take us to find the supplies quickly." Our family exchanged a look and led this group of people to the warehouse without a word. The villagers' eyes lit up when they saw the warehouse full of supplies. Since it snowed, I haven't seen such a warm place. They found a few ropes and tied us up tightly. They made us lead the way and showed them around the farming fortress. The few livestock on the first floor were very disappointing. However, when they saw the full sheds of chickens and ducks on the second floor and the lush vegetable plot, greed flashed in each of their eyes. We walked through every part of the fortress except the bomb shelter, although the amount of supplies in the fortress was also huge. At least it was enough for our family of 3 to survive with these livestock, but for these 100 or so villagers, it was still not enough. They swarmed into the warehouse and grabbed and divided the supplies. Some people drank 2 bottles of water in one go, some people stuffed compressed biscuits into their mouths, and some people even ate instant noodles dry. It seemed that these people were extremely hungry. My parents and I were left aside, and the family of the pasture owner was specifically in charge of watching us. I looked at the woman holding the baby in her arms and asked, "You're a mother, don't you feel guilty about using your own child to win sympathy?" "Guilty?" the woman sneered. "You have so many supplies. What would it matter if you let us in? Why should you be able to live a good life while we have to starve and freeze? We bought all these supplies with our own money, and you also have a lot of money. The signs of the extremely cold apocalypse were obvious, and the government had long called on everyone to buy supplies. How can you blame us for everything? I argued rationally, but the woman slapped me directly. My hands were tied, and I lost my balance for a moment and was knocked to the ground. This was originally my husband's pasture. Now we're just taking back what belongs to my husband. I immediately shut up and shrank behind my father. My father was calm. Although you sold us the farm, we have transformed it into a farming fortress. Without us, it will be difficult for you to quickly understand the situation everywhere. I suggest that we coexist peacefully, and we will also share those supplies with you. The villagers seemed to have heard the biggest joke. A wretched and thin-faced man sneered. Don't you understand? This place originally belonged to our village. If you know what's good for you, you'd better show us the internal structure of the farming fortress, otherwise, you'll be waiting to freeze to death. I remained calm. There are more than 100 of you, and there are only 3 of us. We can't run away even if we want to. It's meaningless to tie us up. Why don't you untie us? Some machines need us to operate them and show you how to use them. The villagers looked at each other, and finally they nodded. 28. I wasn't in a hurry. I led them to one machine after another and demonstrated how to use them, from the second floor to the first floor. The closer we got to the bomb shelter, the more I exchanged looks with my parents. My heart was beating faster and faster, and my palms were sweating. The one in front is the last machine, the automatic weeding machine. The usage method is a bit complicated. I deliberately slowed down my tone, made a gesture to my parents, and then quickly turned around and kicked the man closest to me in his vital part. Ah, bitch. The man curled up on the ground in pain. We took the opportunity to run as fast as we could towards the bomb shelter. The villagers followed slowly. The place where we were running was close to the door, and they were sure that it was so cold outside that we didn't dare to go out. But they were wrong. My father ran to the bomb shelter the fastest. He quickly opened the door, and my mother jumped in first. Only then did the villagers react. Don't let them run away. They have a backup plan. Several strong men ran over in a few steps, trying to stop us, but my father and I had already jumped in. At the moment when the door was about to close, a hand got stuck in the door frame. It was the pasture owner. The door of the bomb shelter was thick and heavy, with a crack sound. It was the sound of bones breaking. The pasture owner had pounced forward, and the pain made him scream and call for people to come over quickly. In a split second, Jojo nimbly jumped to the door and took a bite. The pasture owner let out an even louder scream and had to retract his hand. The door of the bomb shelter was completely closed. 29. Still in a state of shock, I quickly locked the door. This door that couldn't be successfully blasted even by a bomb was our confidence. My father hugged Jojo and praised. You've done a great job. Jojo wagged its tail, its eyes wide open, and tilted its head to look at us. It's a pity that we can't reward it with goat milk now. I was disappointed. I told you, there are no good people in the apocalypse, right? My mother and I fell silent. This crisis was caused by the kind hearts of my mother and me. If we hadn't felt sorry for the baby and couldn't bear to see it suffer, how could we have let the villagers in the cruelest times, when people would even eat each other? How could we have still believed in human kindness? Anger turned into silence, and we both felt self-reproach. Jojo and my father surrounded us. Seeing this, my father comforted us. This also shows that you two have hearts full of love. Our family of 3 is still safe, and the supplies underground are enough for us to live for a long time. Don't be afraid. We both promised my father that we would never show mercy to anyone again. Since the fortress on the ground had been occupied by the villagers, we could only retreat to the underground. At the same time, we couldn't directly discharge waste into the septic tank anymore. The cat litter we bought at the beginning came in handy. The supplies on the ground were only enough for those 100 or so people to live for a little over a month. Once the supplies were exhausted, they would also be on the road to death. We couldn't keep the livestock anymore. Sooner or later, they would be eaten by the villagers. However, the temperature control of the whole fortress was underground. If we stopped burning charcoal, the temperature at the top would drop by at least 10 degrees. The fortress could only maintain a temperature of 25 degrees at present. Although a temperature of 15 degrees was warmer than outside, the continuous low temperature would also make people feel cold and get sick. The sound of pounding on the door on the ground gradually stopped, and I turned on the surveillance camera on the ground. This surveillance camera was originally used to monitor the health and situation of the livestock, but now it was used to monitor the villagers. Most of the villagers lived in family units, 3 to 5 people huddled together. The pasture owner became the leader here and was responsible for distributing supplies to the villagers. After all the commotion, they were all tired. The family of the pasture owner lived in a separate forage warehouse, and the quilt that I had spread on the ground to act in front of Harrison was covered on them. The other villagers found other places where forage was stored. After covering themselves with forage, they fell into a deep sleep, and soon the sound of snoring came one after another in the surveillance. 30. Early the next morning, in the surveillance, the pasture owner sent villagers to pound on the door again. Throughout the morning, the sound of pounding on the door came one after another. I scratched my head, secretly cursing them for being idiots, and stroked Jojo's smooth fur. Fortunately, I had an overwhelming sense of kindness towards Jojo before, otherwise, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Sure enough, puppies are the cutest creatures in the world. I took out a king crab from the freezer and decided to have some meat tonight. King crabs are too expensive and take up a lot of space. I only stocked up on 4 of them in total. It's not too much to eat one after surviving this disaster, right? I also found the sukiyaki soup base in the hot pot base area of the shelf. We'll have king crab sukiyaki tonight, since we added enough coal. The charcoal fire from yesterday hadn't burned out today, so the fortress was still as warm as ever. However, this good life wouldn't last for too long. At the latest, the charcoal fire would burn out this afternoon. It didn't matter underground. But people couldn't stand the loss of temperature on the ground. Sure enough, when it was afternoon, we were still preparing the luxurious sukiyaki, and the people on the ground already felt cold. Why is it getting cold? The pasture owner gathered the villagers together and asked, but no one could answer him. They searched all over the first and second floors of the fortress but couldn't find the heating equipment. They must have put the heating underground, the pasture owner roared. But what was the use of anger? They couldn't do anything. In order to keep warm, they could only stuff some forage into their clothes. Through the surveillance, I roughly learned that there were a total of more than 20 households, and each household had about 5 people. They were from the same village and were all very familiar with each other. I didn't see clearly yesterday. Today, through the surveillance, I realized that some of them were familiar faces when I bought the farm. So it was the news leaked when I bought the farm. 31. I watched as they lived in the fortress in an orderly manner. Some families were responsible for sewing, some were responsible for feeding the cows and sheep, and some were responsible for sweeping the floor. However, most of the people doing these rough jobs were the women and girls in the families. The men and boys were basically idle from day to night. They drank, ate, chatted, and played cards. It seemed that this village was quite backward. With a preference for boys over girls, the temperature outside dropped sharply, and the temperature in the fortress was pitifully low because we cut off the heating. Looking at those women who were shivering while doing farm work, I no longer felt any sympathy in my heart. In order to keep warm at night, everyone had to sleep together to preserve the temperature, and the forage warehouse was overcrowded. Another week passed. The food was getting less and less. Even if the women and girls only ate swill, the reserves in the warehouse were still being squandered quickly. Finally, they set their sights on the livestock. On the first day, they killed 4 pigs. The women cut the pork and put it in the pot, and started boiling it pot by pot. Without seasonings, they used the seasoning packets in the self-heating rice. They brought pot after pot to the men, even though they were already hungry, and even though there was still some pork left. They could only eat the leftovers after the men had finished. They saved these 4 pigs and ate them for 2 weeks. 32. When the pasture owner killed the pigs for the second time, coincidentally, 2 households got sick. The disease was highly contagious, and even the strong men couldn't get rid of the high fever. He rolled his eyes, coughed lightly, and gathered the villagers together. Everyone, the temperature is so low now, and a cold is also a serious illness. There is no medicine to treat it. In case it infects others, more than 100 of us will all be in trouble. The villagers looked at each other. After all, they were from the same village, and no one dared to take the lead. The 2 households couldn't stay calm anymore. Gavin, are you going to kick someone out after they've served their purpose? Don't forget that at the beginning. Alas, the pasture owner interrupted. I'm doing this for everyone's good. You are sick now. You eat more, and you can't work. Do you think it's fair? Gavin is right. the pasture owner's words put the whole village on the opposite side of the two sick households, and someone took the lead in agreeing, yes, surviving is a problem now, you can't be so selfish, isn't our life precious, lock them up and let them fend for themselves, yes, let them fend for themselves. With someone taking the lead and speaking, the villagers couldn't wait to throw these two families out directly. Several men surrounded these two families, dragged them into a pigsty, and locked the pigsty, watching them fight among themselves. I sneered behind the surveillance. Once there was a first case, the villagers' infighting would never end. 33. Time passed quickly, and a month had passed. During this month, including the 4 little pigs newly born by the sows, they had all been eaten up by them. The temperature was getting lower and lower, and more people were getting sick. Many people didn't dare to show that they were feeling unwell. Once they got sick, all that awaited them was to be locked in the pigsty. In just 1 month, more than 50 people had been isolated. Those who were isolated in the pigsty only had a little bit of swill every day. Many people couldn't hold on and were starved to death, and the bodies gave off a rotten smell. The food was getting less and less, and now only the cows and sheep were left. Another week passed. And this time the sheep in the fortress had also been eaten up by the villagers. Perhaps it was because the temperature had dropped too severely in the past few days. After all, it was already more than 120 degrees below zero outside. Every day, people kept getting sick and being sent to the pigsty. In just 1 week, only 10 households were left, which added up to only more than 30 people. However, the family of the pasture owner, who was the culprit, showed no signs of getting sick. I couldn't help but sigh. It's really true that the wicked live long. The sheep among the livestock had also been eaten up. Sheep originally had less meat yield, and there weren't many in the fortress. Even with fewer people, it was normal for them to be eaten up quickly. The pasture owner set his sights on the beef cattle. On the day of killing the cattle, another family was sent to the pigsty. The moment the door was opened, the remaining villagers in the pigsty rioted. The sick and the healthy fought with each other, and more people pounced on the family of the pasture owner. Their hatred for the pasture owner had reached its peak. I don't know who stabbed the pasture owner hard in the abdomen, and the pasture owner fell down with unwillingness. The chaotic battle continued. The people in the pigsty were not well fed and didn't have as much strength as the others. They even spat at the others. Even if I die, I'll drag you damned people down with me. If I don't infect you today, I won't be surnamed sure. I sighed and turned off the surveillance. 34. The next day, I turned on the surveillance again. I first looked at the pigsty. In addition to the original corpses, the family of the pasture owner was also there. The baby was thrown on the ground like a piece of ragged cloth, which was really pitiful. There were more than 40 villagers left, and the people alive in the pigsty were released. I don't know how they reached a consensus yesterday. Now they were sitting together eating beef. After the pasture owner died, the remaining people were surprisingly harmonious, perhaps because there was enough food. They didn't have any more conflicts. Another week passed. Because there were fewer people and the workload was huge, the remaining women were allocated beef. After all, they were considered the main labor force. I don't know if those who were originally sick got much better in complexion because they had enough to eat. While watching the surveillance, my parents also came. My father even teased my mother. Look how happy you are. I do all the housework at home. Stop being glib. Do you dare to let me do the housework? My mother scolded. Don't dare. Don't dare. Our family of 3 was full of joy. Time passed neither too fast nor too slow. More than 3 months later, the cows were also eaten up. On this day, the villagers who were crazy with hunger started killing each other again. People kept getting injured, bleeding, and falling down. Finally, only more than 10 people were left. They took off the clothes of the corpses, set up the pot. They started eating people. The scene was too bloody, and I directly turned off the surveillance video. I didn't turn on the surveillance again for the next month. 35. In the second month, I turned on the surveillance again after a long time. All the villagers had died. I quickly called my parents. Seeing this, my father immediately asked us to put on our down jackets and helmets, and he took the lead in opening the door of the bomb shelter. Because of this set of down jackets, we could actually move freely in the extremely cold weather. After more than half a year, we returned to the ground again. Because of our kind hearts, we lost all the livestock, and the food crops were also damaged by the cold. My parents and I carried the other corpses to the septic tank. When carrying them, I couldn't help but take a look. The corpses were beyond recognition, and there were even signs of being gnawed on. After roughly cleaning up the ground, we returned to the bomb shelter. The moment we took off our down jackets, we all shivered involuntarily. We quickly started the charcoal fire to make the temperature in the fortress rise again. In this apocalypse, the evil of human nature was fully displayed. More than half a year ago, more than 100 people killed each other in the fortress, and in the end, no one survived. I don't feel sorry for the woman who lost her child because she was also one of the murderers who tried to invade our property and supplies. I also don't feel sorry for those innocent women. Even when our family of 3 was attacked by them, if they were willing to take a risk and unite with us, perhaps the situation wouldn't have been so overwhelming. Now, everyone has brought this upon themselves. It wasn't the natural disaster that killed them, but themselves. 36. The next day, the fortress warmed up. Looking at the mess on the ground, I felt even more self-reproach. If we hadn't had the kind heart to save that child, these people wouldn't have been let in. And the livestock wouldn't have all been brutally killed. Now we have cut off one of our own retreats. I took out several bags of seeds from the bomb shelter again and sowed them in the soil. Everything had to start over. Fortunately, my parents and I were still together and safe. I must hoard goods frantically, build a safe house, and survive in the low-temperature environment. Next year, the vegetable seedlings will break through the soil, and we will have a new supply of vegetables. Although there are no more livestock, life has to go on. We returned to our previous life. There were still several thousand gene of forage in the warehouse that hadn't been used, and now we didn't need it either. We planned to use it directly for burning. Coal was also a consumable resource, and we could save a little bit. Jojo's 4 puppies could also move around freely. They were very naughty every day and had an incredibly high energy level. Epilogue. I don't know how many years have passed. Jojo has become an old dog in its twilight years. Its 4 puppies have also grown up, and they want to run back and forth in the fortress 108 times every day. Our crops have been harvested one after another, and we have finally lived a life with fresh vegetables and fruits. Over the years, we have been sick, but we have also safely gotten through it relying on the large stock of medicine. My parents and I live a life with a simple routine every day, cultivating, working, fertilizing, and playing with the dogs. The ground temperature has dropped to 156 degrees below zero, but it has finally stabilized. The sun still hasn't risen. We don't know how long this kind of life will last, but we believe that the sun will definitely rise, and hope will always exist.